I Should Be Writing Season 20, Episode 26.
Well, I should be writing. I should be working on my craft. I should be writing. I should be submitting my next draft. But I'm sitting home watching Doctor Who.
Hi there, welcome to I Should Be Writing. This is a podcast and sometimes live stream for wannabe authors. I'm your host, Mer Lafferty. I have just celebrated the 19th year of doing this podcast, and in December I'll be celebrating 20 years, so that's weird. And I've been a writer professionally since 2011, and I sometimes bring other writers here to tell me how to do the job because I'm still really questioning myself. And today I have an old friend of mine, SB Divya, here to talk about their new book, Loka. Hi, Divya.
Hi, Mer. Good to be here. Always nice to hang out with you.
I know, I miss you. WorldCon was so wild that I got to wave at a lot of people I care a lot about, and waving was almost all that we did. So,
I heard it was 7,000 people.
Really?
Which, yeah.
Wow.
It's like, no wonder I couldn't find people half the time.
No kidding.
Hard to spot your friends in a crowd of 7,000.
Yeah. And I heard there was like the hotel bar, but then they had a WorldCon bar in the back of the hotel that I just usually walked through to get to the hotel bar. I think just people found their flag and posted it, and I think the drinks were expensive anywhere you went. But how was your WorldCon? Tell me about it. I think this is my first I Should Be Writing since WorldCon.
Oh.
It is actually recorded.
Well, I'm honored to be your first post-WorldCon guest. It was really good. Yeah, I think there were multiple places people were hanging out, because some people said that they really liked the bar. There was a bar area in the convention center itself, which I think is somewhat unusual. Like, I feel like most convention centers in the U.S. don't serve alcohol. Like, they don't want the liquor license hassle.
The last time we had that, I think, was WorldCon London. So, yeah, the UK likes to put their bars in the convention. Yeah. Did Dublin have a bar in the convention hall?
I have no idea. I wasn't at that one.
Oh, okay. Sorry.
But this one, like people, I think there were multiple pockets, and I was doing most of my WorldCon, what's the right verb? I can't verb. Transportation was via powered wheelchair. Mm-hmm. So other than the like official con bar and the official con hotel, which is where I was staying, that one I could just, walk down the elevator to the bar, but like everywhere else I would have to deal with my wheelchair. Mm-hmm. And it was not the greatest. Like even the other hotel bar, I had to go through like 2 sets of double doors that did not automatically open. Oh God. And I mean, I'm glad like the double doors between my room and the elevators, it was, if there had been a camera, I think I would have ended up on the internet, because like every time I went through, I tried something different. It was always awkward. It was using like both my legs and my arms to kind of try to get these 2 doors, because I couldn't get the chair through one door. They're very like narrow doors. Mm-hmm. So I kind of had to like push and then kick and then like, use one hand to maneuver the wheelchair through really fast. Inevitably, at least one would like hit, the chair on the way through. Yeah, it was a whole experience. But apparently the UK has these fire doors, and legally they have to keep them closed always. Why they don't invest in buttons for disabled people to, automatically open those doors, I couldn't tell you. But
I hear like disability issues are not really addressed in the current or the previous UK governance, just not really caring much about it. So I'm sorry you had to struggle with that. It is something interesting that I don't think I ever talk about, going back to the bar thing, that, we talk about BarCon, But in places big enough like WorldCon, you don't know what bar that's going to be. And that is interesting. So it's like you have to, sorry, losing my train of thought. I'm tired. It's usually if the con's in one hotel and most everybody's staying in that hotel, it's obvious. But in larger cons like WorldCon, then there's the main con hotel, and then there's the hotel where you're staying, which mine technically had a bar, but didn't. I think there were maybe 2 people I knew also in that hotel, and one of them I didn't like, so I wasn't going to have a drink with them. But, yeah, I'm just being honest. I'll never say who it is, but anyway.
Yeah, lots of comments and commiseration in chat about how, accessibility. I mean, accessibility is a challenge everywhere, and I appreciate at least the places that they did try to help. There was this one speed bump between the con hotel and the convention center that everyone in a wheelchair I've spoken to, when I'm like, that speed bump though, and they're like, yes, why? Because it was tall, and like going over a speed bump in a wheelchair, the way up isn't so bad, but the way
did you bottom out?
No, I didn't bottom out, but you feel like you're about to tip over. I didn't, thankfully, but a lot of people were kind of like, why would you put a speed bump, there of all places? But I guess it's for the cars, so
yeah.
But other than that, honestly, it was a very good time, and I was super lucky this time. I don't know what gods were smiling upon me, but I got 5 panels.
Yeah.
And an autographing, and I got the little book launch thing that they did for the first time, which I thought was really fun.
That's
and they
cool.
they had on 3 days, they had like a 1-hour session with a room with just like round tables and chairs, right? Almost banquet style, and a little podium. And 8 authors who were having book releases, right around the time of WorldCon, which I was. And we would have 3 or 4 minutes to kind of pitch our book and ourselves. And then after half an hour, it was just mingling, basically, with people who were interested. And that was pretty fun. I hope they keep that going in future WorldCons. I thought that was kind of cool and reasonably well attended.
Yeah, that's one of the bad things about WorldCon being a completely separate entity every year. It's like sometimes when one WorldCon does something, you're like, oh, I'd love to see that again. No, okay.
Right. Yeah.
But
we'll see.
Yeah.
All my panels were all good. The very first panel, our moderator was a no-show, not through no fault of his own.
Okay.
I think he had travel delays. I heard this happen to a few other people too. Travel delays on the way over, and so the moderator didn't make it in time.
Yeah.
So I got to pinch hit moderating, but it worked out because the other 3 people were PhDs.
Oh,
and
okay.
it was about terraforming, so I just got to sit there and kind of pick their brains. I weighed in a little bit on the ethics side, but I am not a scientist of the geological or planetary variety, so
right.
That was cool.
I think it was a really good con. They tried really, really hard because of all the crap that happened in Chengdu, and I say that as if it is the Chengdu WorldCon's, like the Chinese side's fault, which it was not. But in case anyone heard, the man who was in charge of the Great Hugo debacle of 2023 actually did show up, even though he was banned at WorldCon. He showed up to one of the bars, and a mysterious woman in a hat yelled something very loud and rude to him, and he ran away. And no one knows who this mysterious woman in a hat was. But
we are all very, very grateful.
We are.
Sure. Yes.
Mysterious woman in a fabulous hat, I should say.
Sure.
Yes. I thought you were going to say lucky because of COVID, because so many people got sick. So many. And I think a lot of them got a strain that wasn't too bad, but I still don't want it. And, some of the elderly people, like Pat Cadigan, got it. And I didn't even know Pat was there. I'm bummed.
Yeah,
That's one person I'm bummed that I
I
didn't get a chance to see. But me and my family were lucky, and we made it home. And then I had lunch with a friend on Friday, and Sunday he texted me saying, "Bad news." So I got to mask and test frequently around my family for a couple of days until I was cleared. And then I went to Bubonicon and was guest of honor there. And that was a lot of fun. But if you listen to, well, for live stream, it came out this week. But if you're listening on the feed, it came out a couple of weeks ago. The interview with Tanya DePass, she talks about how she doesn't like it when people say they're jealous because she gets professional. What's the word? Well, basically, they'd named her a special guest of honor, and they flew her to Glasgow, and everyone's like, "Oh, you get to go to Glasgow! I'm so jealous." And she's like, "Yeah, but it's an 8-hour flight, and they're working me really hard." Mm-hmm. So yes, cons are fun, and it's great to have a fun trip as part of your job. But, like, I love BarCon. You know, I know I'm getting older, but still, staying up till midnight, having a couple of drinks and talking to people is, like, still one of my favorite things at a con. I was in bed by 9:30 on Saturday night at Bubonicon because I was just spent. So, right. You know, and I used to think book tours were glamorous, and then TJ Klune was the other author, guest of honor, and the way he was talking about his book tour made me want to crawl into a blanket and, you know, curl up in a closet and not go out because it's just so...
You know, he was there either.
Yeah, he just looked completely exhausting.
Yeah. It is glamorous, but it's also work.
Yeah,
you know?
Yeah, it's glamorous
like
work.
Being an actor, yeah.
Yeah, like being an actor, yeah. Hearing about...
Do you feel like Bubonicon should maybe change their name?
Talking about how I was looking for, you know, I was testing for COVID daily before I went to Bubonicon. Telling that to people who were not familiar with the con, they thought I was hysterical. They really did. Bubonicon leans into the whole bubonic thing, the rats. I now have a tote bag that's only given to guests of honor, and it's got a dead rat on it.
Nice.
Yeah.
All right.
I think they're not gonna change. I mean, you know, if they had a COVID con, you'd think maybe that would be bad publicity and rude. But I think Bubonicon's that's far enough away. Right. Like we used to think Nazis were far enough away to make jokes about them, and then they came back. But I don't know what I'm talking about. I'm supposed to be talking about, I haven't done a podcast in a long time. I'm supposed to be talking about what I'm working on, and that is a lot, actually, because I am still taking my interactive fiction class. I don't know if Jason Rambo's ever comes back to this con, but this live stream, but last time I mentioned I wanted to learn interactive fiction, he laughed at me because I'd been saying I wanted to do it for years, but I'm finally taking a class on it, and I worked a lot because I was so busy traveling. I had a presentation yesterday, and I worked very hard on Tuesday to get something to play. And it wasn't very good, but most of the problems were first draft problems, so I'm calling it a win. And I've got edits on Infinite Archive to go through. I've been ruminating on them, going through, making lists. I think they're going to be easy fixes, but I might have thought that last time, so we'll see. I think my problem is I really like the whole space adventure part of my books. The murder mystery is really, really difficult for me. So I'm going to have to, concoct another murder mystery, because the last one, she's like, my editor's like, I don't buy all these motives. Like, they didn't have a motive. That's not a good motive. Well, they had a motive, but why that point in time? Why not earlier? And I'm like, oh, you're right. I didn't just swear on my podcast. I said, pho.
Yeah, like the soup.
So a deer. Long way to run or something. Anyway. So yeah, that's what I've been up to. Divya, do you want to tell us what you've been up to?
Okay. So this last couple weeks, mostly I have been running around, not literally, doing podcasts and book promotion type stuff. I have also been reading for the Salam Awards, which is the Pakistani Speculative Fiction Awards. I'm on their jury this year. Yeah, that's cool. For short fiction. I have started researching for a really juicy short story project for a think tank.
Ooh, like a futurist kind of thing?
You would think it would be futurist, but no, it is dark matter. So I've been brushing up on my fundamental physics. It's just a good excuse to go dive back into that stuff after 30 years, because why not? And also like the current state of dark matter, but I get to collaborate with a scientist, so that's cool. Like I've been enjoying chatting with him about where things are at, and obviously like trying to figure out what we can do with the story. You know, I have a certain brief. I'm not sure how much I'm allowed to disclose, so I'm being a little circumspect. But yeah, so I've got that going. I did a short story for an Indian anthology for India Futures last month. And mostly just like shower and car noodling on a couple of book ideas I have, but I haven't started really laying down any words on long-term stuff because I was taking a break for most of this year. So I turned in edits on Loka back in like February, I think. February, March, somewhere in there. And I was tired. So I decided to take some time off and just read. I said no even to short story type stuff. And I've been reading books because the books have just been piling up, right? And the TBR list has just been piling up. And it's been nice to chip away at some of that and also say yes to some blurbs for friends. So I'm excited about some of the books coming out later this year as well.
Excellent. I just want to say that shower and car ruminating is words we need to say more often, because that's really amusing.
That's where I get all my best ideas. I don't know about
absolutely.
other people, but it's like in the shower or when I'm driving.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm going to go ahead and set up the giveaway now for the stream folks, and then I'll probably put a note on the feed to how to enter the giveaway that way. But we are giving away copies of Meru and Loka. I'm sorry, but I can only say US people because this is coming out of my own pocket and I can't ship books shipped internationally is pretty expensive. So I'm very much sorry. I wish I could, but right now I can't really handle international shipping. But if you guys are interested in both books, you can, let's see, I'm going to do a timer for 20 minutes. All right. Giveaway is open. Exclamation point LOKA to join. And since that was a fantastic segue, thank you to me for being so smart. We're going to segue into the book. Tell us about Loka and set the stage with Meru if you think it's important. Or if it's not, we're going to actually talk about that later, the standalone versus duology. But tell us about it, Divya.
Let's talk about Loka first. Loka, my super short Hollywood elevator pitch is it is around the world in 80 days if Greta Thunberg was the protagonist, right? Someone who wants to make the journey with certain constraints and ethical considerations for environment and other such. So the main character in Loka is a teenager, 16, 17. She and her best friend embark on this thing called the Anthro Challenge, where they have to circumnavigate the Earth using only human-era technology, because this is an alloy-era book. And the alloys are post-humans that you learn a lot more about in Meru in book 1. I have been describing the two books as peanut butter and chocolate. Like, they are really good together. With Meru being, the chocolate on the outside. Like, it's good to read that one first. But honestly, you can read them in either order. They totally stand alone. There are some character relationships that make an appearance in the second book. And there are some spoilers in the second book for the first book. But nothing I think that would really detract from enjoying them in the quote wrong order. And yeah, this universe is set about 1,000 years in our future, where the post-human descendants of human beings are the dominant species in the universe. There's space travel, there's genetic engineering, there's what I call a post-necessity world, which goes beyond a post-scarcity world. There's philosophy, there's big ideas, there's everything I think people have come to expect from my fiction at this point. Not easy answers, not so much good and evil being very clear cut.
Yeah.
Moral ambiguity, all found. This book has some found family, which is kind of fun, and it is in large part kind of a travelogue of future Earth, because I don't get to travel as much as, I used to, mostly because I physically can't. And so it was really lovely to just kind of research all these different places as my characters went around the globe, and kind of vicariously through them see what those places are like, and feel like I almost got to go there.
Okay. That sounds awesome. People are very excited about it in the chat. We have an ad break coming up, and I keep forgetting to tell people when ad breaks are coming up, and I keep going, or I don't stop the interview, and we're going to do that now. We're going to stop the interview when Frosty Tools is supposed to warn us when the ad break starts and going to tell us when the ad break stops. So you won't miss anything if you go do a thing if the ads come up. I can't talk.
Yeah, Greta Thunberg's
break,
Crossing of the Atlantic. Someone mentioned that in chat, and that was definitely one of my inspirations, for sure.
Oh wow!
Yeah, when she came to speak at the UN, she refused to use any conveyance that caused pollution. So she took sailboats and electric cars and bicycles, and she almost didn't make it back. Actually, I think the way over was okay. The way sailing back, she got delayed for like a month or more due to storms. And
oh wow,
it was a whole adventure. Yeah, interesting stuff.
She's pretty amazing. The bot has not said the ad has started. So actually, Divya, are you seeing an ad?
No, I am not.
I'm trying to trust. Fine. Okay. I don't mind. I'll fix it in post. No problem.
The ad is a lie, Mer.
I know. Try. Anyway, okay. Well, we'll just keep talking. So 1 second. I'm sorry. Oh, now it says there's an ad break in progress. Man, damn it, Twitch.
Oh, there's the ad. Yep.
Okay. All right, fine. Yeah. Then I can take a moment to remember what I was going to ask you. Oh, yeah, the futurist thing. Okay, cool. Not specifically the futurist thing, but what you said about figuring out 1,000 years in the future. But
we'll circle back to that.
Yeah. Yeah, I should have done a BRB screen, but I got water. Divya, do you need to go get fresh water or anything?
No, I'm good.
Okay. See,
we're too. Yeah.
I didn't believe it the last time. Down. It's okay. Like 33 seconds according to
that's not enough time for me to get up and do anything, because I wish I could easily turn the camera around and show you my setup, but I am actually sitting in bed with one of those like rolling medical desk table things across my bed and the laptop up on top of it. So like just getting out of all of that is about 30 seconds. Yeah. And then I'm like, there's no...
Well, I mean, you wouldn't be under that. I mean, like if you took extra time, I wouldn't bring the whole show back and say, we're going to go on without her. Woo!
That's right. No, it'd just be awkward because I'd be like crawling back into this space. No, I'm good. I have arranged my life around easily reachable spaces. So it's like my reading glasses, my water, everything I need to plug in my devices is all very accessible so that I don't have to get up as much.
Okay. And we're back, in
Yay.
theory. I hope so. One thing you mentioned that I really wanted to jump on is because it's a problem I have. And somebody actually pointed it out to me. He said how much he liked 6 Weeks, but how I didn't age the world along with all the cloning stuff. Like I really, brought in all the legal and ethical things, questions regarding cloning and all the tech, but the rest of the world didn't really change a whole lot in those couple hundred years that I have in the future. And you went 1,000 years. So how do you go about planning that? Because I need to know. I don't care if anybody listening needs to know. I need to know. Please. Oh, wait, you went away. Your audio cut out again. No.
All right.
Okay,
so
cool.
Here we go.
Great.
No, I was muted, I think. All right. So I did a small scale of this first for Machine Hood, where I was setting that story in 2095, right? And I was planning it in like 2017. So I went decade by decade between now and 2095, just like a few sentences of what I thought, was changing, especially plot relevant, but also geopolitically, right? Like things that might change between now and then. So I tried to do both broad strokes and narrow strokes. With Meru and Loka, I did most of the planning, the big world building for Meru. So the broad sweeping stuff, I kind of work backwards. So I knew what kind of world I wanted for Meru. Like I wanted this, I wanted a world where panpsychism and the idea of consciousness being a force of nature was already accepted as like known law of physics. I wanted these post-humans to have already existed for a few hundred years. I wanted Earth to be like at least partially ecologically rehabilitated, rewilded, etc.
Mm-hmm.
And so one of the things, and then socially, like the humans in Meru and Loka in this far future universe are confined-ish to living on Earth, while the alloys are out in space, and it's a voluntary confinement for the most part. So I needed reasons and things to have happened between now and then that kind of led us to this particular future. So I kind of filled in the gaps along the way of, okay, so what happens between now and then? And I kind of went more century by century for this one, like plausibly, let's say, genetic engineering and robotics and AI are all kind of advancing over the next couple hundred years. And space travel and early exploration of Mars starts growing. And, people get into this idea of terraforming. They get very big-headed about it. And they start making massive changes to Mars. And it goes terribly wrong. Also, they are doing a lot of tinkering with genetic engineering, and that too goes horribly wrong, with a lot of people dying just because we're messing with forces we don't always completely understand. And so, sort of in the middle, like about 500 years-ish from now, right? I figured out that, okay, genetic engineering and androids kind of start to converge, and that's where alloys start to happen. And we get better at working with DNA. We start establishing laws on what you can and can't do when you're tinkering with this stuff. And eventually we get good enough that it's kind of like building with Legos, right? So now we can build any kind of being we want. We have recognized that doing shit to planets is bad, and we are not going to. Human beings have decided that they are not really well suited to exploring space. They don't want to modify everything in the solar system to suit them. That's very hubristic. And so they're just going to live on Earth and be content and genetically engineer themselves to be content, and less greedy and less ambitious. And meanwhile, their children and their grandchildren and their evolutionary descendants, the alloys, have now been built to live in the vacuum of space. And so they can exist out there without a lot of resources and without having to build a lot of structures or inhabit any other planets. And so all of those steps ultimately led me to, okay, it's like building the connective tissue to then get me to where I want to start this story, which is a human on Earth who is kind of chafing at all this now. And she's like, look, it's been long enough. We've been confined to Earth long enough. We've changed ourselves enough. Like, when are we going to get a second chance to go back out there? I want to go back out there.
Right.
And so that kicks off Meru, which is the first book. And then, the second book is about Akshaya, who has a little bit of alloy DNA. So she's no longer even 100% human. But she's grown up off Earth, and she's been genetically designed for the planet of Meru, but she's, being a teenager, is kind of like, look, I want not to do what my parents intended for me. I want to go explore Earth. Like, I'm human. This is the birthplace of humanity. Like, let me go be where I want to be. And so that's kind of what kicks off book 2. So that's, I guess my world building, a lot of it is sort of, because you can, I don't know, when you're 1,000 years from now, like, you can end up in all kinds of futures, right? Like, I don't know what the hell is actually going to happen. But I know what I want that future to look like. And then I can kind of work backwards from there and work forwards from now and find a decent meeting point where it's like, here are some plausible steps that could get us to this particular future. With machinehood, I was trying to be a lot more realistic, right? 75 years isn't that bad. And so that was just a lot of extrapolating from where we are today. And one of the tricks I like to use for both of these, for both Meru and machinehood, is I went on Wikipedia and I looked up a country. And I looked at what the categories were for that country to describe that country, right? So it goes beyond, you start with the basics of, like, what is the geography? What's the population size? What are the languages they speak? But then you get into, what is the form of government? What are their cultural values? What is the technology and science? And what is art like? What is fashion like? What is the food like? And so I stole all these categories and used that to then populate my future world, right? So in the year 2200, what are the nations of the world? What does the planet look like? What are the different types of government? What are the social values? Like, who's in the upper class? Is there a middle class? Is there a lower class? What are the dominant languages? Like, one of the things I played with Meru was changing, the dominant language. Because the post-human alloys have inorganic memory, they can basically kind of suck down and easily learn whatever language they want. So they've resurrected, dead languages from the past just for fun, because they can.
Yeah.
What are the religions, right? What are people wearing? What are the vehicles? What's transportation like? Yeah, so there's all these dimensions, right, to a society. And so I have fun then thinking about what I want those dimensions to look like. And some of it, I think what readers often, I think, find satisfying when they tell me my world feels lived in is some of it is familiar, right? Like, if there's human beings, they're probably still eating and bathing and wearing clothes. But
probably
some of it, is wildly different. Like, everybody has sex on camera and it's not a big deal and they get tips for it. Like, this is no longer morally a problem.
Oh my.
The facets of machinehood. Privacy is just not a thing people care about anymore. And instead, they've figured out a way to monetize their lives. So it's like playing, with expectations, looking at things that have changed, today versus the past, right? And adding a few little surprises in there, especially about daily life, things that everyone takes for granted. All right, so that was a really long answer.
No, that was awesome. Thank you. One thing I wanted to talk to you about is, first, the fact that this is a duology. But in talking to you before we started recording, discovering that your answer has a lot to do with people asking me why there aren't any more shambling guides or why I changed genres, as if I just decided to change genres. And so tell us about the duology and what's behind that, as comfortable as you are talking about that.
Sure. So it is not, I still say it's technically not a duology. We're calling it that, a book 1 of 2 and a book 2 of 2, but it's not your typical series where, book 1 ends with a whole lot of stuff unresolved and book 2 pretty much picks up where that leaves off, right? And continues with characters, continues with like a longer plot arc. None of that. Like book 1 very much kind of stands alone. Book 2 very much stands alone, takes place about 16 years later, 17 years later. So there's a time gap, a whole different set of main characters that we follow. But it's a duology in the sense that these 2 books, inhabit the same universe. And there is definitely closure at the end of Loka for one thing that has been left a little bit open-ended at the end of Meru. So it does really kind of close a chapter for this one family. And why a duology? Yeah, I didn't set out to write a duology. I set out to write a bunch of books in the same universe, more like the culture. But in working with my publisher, once they started saying book 1 of a series, I think that was, in hindsight, probably a strategic error. But I knew it was going to be at least 2 books when I set out, because I had a 2-book contract. And at this point, the publisher is not very keen on me writing more books in this universe for a variety of reasons that I'm not going to get into on the record. But that's not to say that we'll never go back to it. And certainly, I'm contemplating writing short stories or novellas set in this universe, right? Yeah. So, I think that kind of feeds into your question too, right? When people say, are there going to be more books in this universe? I kind of have to say, well, it's ultimately up to my publisher whether there will be more novels that will be branded as books 3, 4, 5, whatever of the Alloy era.
Yeah.
But for now, where it's out there as a completed 2 of 2 set, so that at least people aren't confused. I did have one person write in and ask me after I announced the release date for Loka. They were like, is this the second book of a trilogy? Are you going to finish the trilogy? Because I hate getting invested in things and then I never get the ending. And I was like, no. Honestly, you could just read book 1 and be perfectly happy. But this is book 2 of 2. So at that point, I talked to my publisher about it, and they changed the title to book 2 of 2. But they couldn't take out, apparently, the numbering of 1 and 2. I don't know. Because I was like, can we just call it like an Alloy era book? But they're like, no, we can't do that. But we can say book 2 of 2 in the blurb or whatever, right? So.
Yeah. So you've been open about long COVID and how it's affected your life. You were talking about how after you turned in the edits to Loka, you were really burned out. And I realize we use that word a lot, but we don't actually talk about what it actually is. Because when I hear people talk about it, like you and Premi Mohammed, I'm thinking, yeah, I've never had it that bad. So what really is burnout?
It's probably not the same for everybody. So I guess I will speak to it, what was my burnout like? Yeah. I turned in the edits for this book, and I had some sort of vague notions for another novel that were like 3 or 4 sentences long, right? That I sent to my agent, to my editor. But I was tired. So, Loka was the first book that I've written since developing long COVID. And what I discovered in the process of writing it is that once I've devoted my 2 hours a day to writing this book, I am pretty much spent. I am worthless. I can't go out to lunch with a friend. I can't play video games that day. Like, I can't read a book. I can basically, lie there and watch like really low key, low brain TV. And, maybe have like a half-hour conversation with my parents or someone that doesn't care if I'm not entirely with it.
Mm-hmm.
And so I had to push to meet the deadline on this book because I am a deadline-oriented person, and we had pre-orders up, like the book had to come out by a certain date. And so I had to give up a lot of life in order to get this book done.
Mm-hmm.
And so when I finished the book, it was like, oh my God, I do not want to embark on this again. Like, I need some time to do other things in my life, to reconnect with my friends, to maybe, travel a bit, to focus on my health, to go see my doctors. I stopped visiting my doctors for the 1.5 years, pretty much, in between, because I did not have the bandwidth to go do those appointments and try, whatever therapeutic things they wanted me to try.
Right.
So I'd been sitting on some of these IV hydration type stuff. There were specific medications they wanted me to try. And so I started doing all of that instead of writing another book, because my brain was just like, I don't want to write another book. I just don't want to. And so burnout for me was just this complete and utter lack of interest. Like, I was staring at these proposals that, my agent and my editors, frankly, were like, oh yeah, these all sound cool. Like, give us something a little bit more fleshed out so we can decide, which one we think is best for your next one, or you can decide, right? So I had told them that by August, I would give them a little bit more of a synopsis. I would start working on these. But every time I would kind of start to think about doing that, my entire being was like, no, don't want to.
Mm-hmm.
Just don't want to. We're just not going to do that today. And so I stopped fighting it. I was like, you know what? I haven't not been working on a book since 2016. So I'm just going to give myself these next few months to read and play video games and have lunch with my friends and do all my medical stuff. And that is okay.
Yeah.
Because a lot of the hamster wheeling right along the way was like, well, you have to keep up the momentum. Once you're out there, you should get the next thing out. Like, this is the advice we received.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that is true, right? One of my regrets in 2017 was that I didn't have a manuscript ready to go, because I did have momentum. I was up for a Nebula for my novella. People were talking about me, and it's like, gosh, it would be really nice if I could have a book out in 2018, but I didn't have a book written, much less anywhere close to being out. So, so there is some truth to that, but I hope, you get to a certain point also where now you're established, you have a readership. They don't need to see you every year to remember you. They will come back for your next book, hopefully in 2, 3, or 4 years. And maybe so will publishers. I think that's a little bit more where it gets scary, is like, our publisher is going to want me.
Yeah.
But then again, I have been through 3 publishers for 3 books. So at this point, I'm like, even with the momentum, there's no guarantee that your publisher is going to come back to you and want more books from you. And so I've gone out on submission multiple times. And so it doesn't seem that scary. Mm-hmm. And after having, some deep, honest conversations with my agent, she was actually very encouraging. She's like, it's good if you're planning to take that time off. It's structured, like, know your limits. There's no point pushing through them and forcing yourself to write something that you don't want to write at this point. So yeah, so that's kind of where burnout was. And then in July or like late June, I think, these two editors from India came to me and said, hey, we would really love it if you could get a short story to us. It's a very tight timeline. You've got 6 weeks, so we understand if you can't do it. But I was like, I read their email, I went and took a shower, and the brief was basically future India, right? Like near future-ish, in the next century, science fiction. And I'm sitting in the shower and I start thinking, and this whole story just comes to me in like 15 minutes in the shower. And I got out of the shower and I'm like, yeah, okay, I can write this in 6 weeks. So I replied to them and was like, okay, yes. So my brain at that point, I think, was telling me that we are ready to do this. And it's a, 3,000 to 4,000 word short story, low commitment re-entry point. And it worked out and I enjoyed writing it. So
that's great. Yeah. Space Valkyries in chat. I think it's so hard balancing life when disabled because things in general are not paced with that in mind. Yes, indeed.
Yes. Pacing, very much a key word with MECFS and long COVID.
Yeah.
And applies to so many areas.
Yeah. When we are nearing our end of an hour, I'm going to go ahead and choose a winner of copies of Meru and Loka. Let's see. Pick winner. Ian, you are the winner. Congratulations. If you could either whisper or email me at mightymer@gmail.com and give me your address, and I will get those books out to you.
Ian, if you want the books signed, I can mail some book plates tomorrow that she could stick in the books.
That'd be great. That's cool. Thank you.
Yeah.
I hope Ian's still here. If not, I'm not sure what I'm going to do because I've never done a thing with somebody not being here.
Can you do it again?
I can. I can choose another one, but we'll give Ian a little bit of time.
There
he is. Okay, good. I'm like, I'm thinking about the times I'm watching a stream and I'm across the room listening, and I got like my hands up to my wrists in a chicken, and I'm thinking, right. Oh God, I got to reply, and so figured I'd give it a little time. Yes. Well, you've told us you're taking a break, well earned, and I think it's really important when you wake up and you don't feel like working, you kick yourself in the butt because you're lazy or whatever. But when you wake up and you say, I am taking time off, that your brain is more likely to allow that and not regret you needing time that you literally need.
I think we all do, as writers, especially being our own bosses. Sometimes we're really mean bosses, like we're shitty bosses, right?
Yeah.
And a good boss knows, a good manager knows that people need time off to recharge. And so, doing it with some degree of intentionality, which doesn't mean you have to fill your time off with productive stuff. Yeah. Right? Fill your time off with just let yourself do what you want that day. Yeah. And the mind eventually comes back, I think.
Is there anything that you want to talk about that we haven't touched on?
I don't know. Is there? Oh, okay. I did have a story out in Clark's World.
Oh, great.
That's super fun. It came out in the June issue. So please go look that up if you need, something else by me to read. It is very set in the present world, but also very sci-fi. So I won't spoil it. Good. There's a little bit of mystery to it.
Oh, excellent. Well, where can we find you online?
Best place these days is just go to my website, isbdw.com, and fill out a contact form. You can find me on Instagram and Blue Sky, and you can follow me on Facebook or Mastodon. But honestly, I do not spend a lot of time on social media these days. I mainly go out there to kind of give news of my world. And so I find it very fatiguing, unfortunately. Reach out to me by email is really the best way. And then, Ian's asking for an email.
Yeah, the email to send your address to me would be mightymer@gmail.com. and that's what I was going to say as closing, because that's how you guys can send me questions. If you want to support the Patreon, that helps me keep the lights on and, keep buying books to send to giveaway winners. So yeah, I will be putting a little end point on this about how to win copies of the books from the feed if you're listening later. But for now, you can just find me at mightymur@gmail.com or murverse.com. I'm probably most active on Blue Sky. I'm trying to get more into short video, but I realize I'm saying that like I was saying I want to learn how to do IF for so long. So I think I need to get over myself and start making the videos. I have the ideas of the videos I want to make. Oh my God, I'm like those writers who say, oh, I want to write a book, I just don't have the time. Kill me now. No.
It's hard. There's a lot of things competing for our time and attention.
Yes, exactly. But thank you, Divya. The book is Loka. It is out now, and you should go find it. We'll have links to that and Divya's short story and all that on murverse.com. So thank you, Divya. And
thank you. Thanks everyone for joining us.
We'll see you guys later, and you should be writing. Thank you for listening to I Should Be Writing, the longest running writing podcast in existence. This episode was made possible by the Fabulous, who support the podcast via Patreon or Substack. Join the Fabulous at patreon.com/mightymur or mightymur.substack.com. Theme music provided by John Anelio, art provided by Numbers Ninja, and podcast hosting provided by Libsyn. This episode is released under Creative Commons Attribution Non-Commercial No Derivatives 4.0 license. You can find all of my books and podcasts at murverse.com. Hey, you listened till the end. I'm so happy. Now, if you live in the US, you can send me an email to get a chance to win Divya's books, and they're signed because she sent me book plates. All you have to do is put in the body of the email the phrase, "in the far future." You have until the end of October 2024 to enter, and then I will draw a winner and send them to you. Again, US only. I'm sorry, but I can't afford to send things worldwide. Wish I could. But thanks, Divya, for your time, and thank you guys for listening.